Hey Gabriella, it's so lovely to meet you. What have you been up to today?
Today, what have I been doing? I rehearsed this morning in my studio inside my house. Played with my dog a little bit, had a big lunch, and then came here.
So you originally hail from Melbourne. What Australian artists do you have on your iPod?
What Australian artist I have got here on my iPod? Artist called Casey Chambers. I have the Divinals. I probably have Powderfinger, Silverchair. Yeah, quite a lot of Australian artists.
And what about Australian TV? Are you a fan of Neighbours?
I am a fan of Neighbours. I'm from Melbourne, so I'm team Neighbours. Don't have anything against Home and Away, but I've just always been a Neighbours girl.
How would you describe your music to your fans?
How would I describe my music? This is always a question that gets me, but I'd say it's some kind of ethereal pop soul. I don't know how I would explain it.
If you could collaborate with any artist, dead or alive, who would it be?
Dead or alive? Well, Robert Plant is my hero. I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan. Houses of the Holy is my favourite record. And I love his voice. I'd love to perform with him, although I'd probably be too nervous to string any kind of note together.
I can't imagine what it would have been like to be thrown into this limelight from such an early age. Can you remember how you felt the first time you performed for a massive audience?
Yes, I was absolutely... what's the word? Yeah, I was so... I just remember being terrified. I was... I think someone who heard me performing and asked me to play on this show called The Good Friday Appeal, which is like this big... it's like when they do the Red Nose Day here. It was like one of those shows. And I was 10 at the time. When I look back on the video now, I'm wearing like a bandana and denim on denim. It's like great choice of outfit, Gabriella. And I remember just being like, I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And I'm just standing there in one spot, like not moving. But literally, it took me like 100 gigs, I reckon, to get anywhere, to kind of be comfortable on stage. I still get really nervous. But I remember somebody telling me, it's going to take you, the first producer I worked with, it's going to take you 100 gigs before you get used to it. And he was right.
You mentioned on your previous albums that you felt kind of like a puppet. Now that you've parted with Island Records, do you feel like you have more control of your image and music?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, definitely like my whole first record wasn't a really pleasant and kind of interesting learning experience. It was my first time in the studio, my first time learning how to put a song together and, until it comes out onto a CD. It was quite, exciting. And yeah, my second record, I did feel like I lost a little bit of control over it. But yeah, it's just been really nice this time to have the time and the freedom to kind of get to know the record that I want to make. And like when I first split up from my label and and my management, I did feel like I didn't really know what to do first. I was like, how am I going to do this? But now I've proved to myself that I can do it, and I've got a really tight group of musicians that I work with, who I write with and I perform with. So I know even next time now I know what I would do. So it's just it was kind of a new beginning, but it's going to roll on for a while.
The new album's called The Sting. Can you describe the title to us?
The Sting? I've kind of... I was writing a lot of kind of nursery rhyme type melodies and like lyrics. And yeah, the idea of The Sting kind of came about like that. I was just thinking of, a kind of menacing nursery rhyme that you would sing your baby to sleep with. But it does kind of sum up a lot of experiences for me, I guess. That the whole time when I felt like I'd lost control of my music, and I didn't really know where I was going. I did feel like I'd been stung a little bit, but I'm still here. So I only had like a little allergic reaction. I'm all right. But yeah, definitely that kind of feeling of the Sting inspired the record.
You got to spend a lot more time in the studio on this album than the previous two. How did you find working in the studio for such a long time?
It was all right. I recorded some of it at home. I have a studio at home, so I'd literally walk downstairs in my pajamas, and one of my guitarists might come over. Would have come over, and we'd just sit and write. So it was free. It was really free experience. I did some writing in New York, in Brooklyn, but mainly just in London, in my friends' houses or at my house or whatever. So just that kind of thing. It was nice to have the time. Yeah.
What sort of material can we expect to hear? Is it similar to Lessons to Be Learned, or is it like a different approach?
I did a totally different approach. For the Lessons to Be Learned, it was a lot of I remember writing loads of different melodies, and it was all about the way the melody sounded. It was more about finding like a fun lyric. Like Sweet About Me was quite a fun thing. I think this time it was more drawing from experiences, and I've written like that before, but never to this extent. And it's kind of inspired, still inspired by all those artists, kind of soul artists that I love. I'm always listening to Otis Redding and Nina Simone, but then I was listening to a lot of Portishead, Tricky. I got to work with Tricky on the album, so listening to a lot of that kind of Bristol kind of trip hop sound. But it's also got a live sounding feeling. It's still an album that can be reproduced live. It's not totally synthetastic, but it's balanced. Yeah.
You mentioned that you worked with Tricky on the album. Are there any other producers you worked with?
So I got to go to Paris and work with Tricky, which was really nerve-wracking because I'd been listening to a lot of his records before I went to work with him. So I was kind of I was really nervous. It took me a day to get over my nerves and actually write a song with him. So I got to work with him, and then my whole record was produced by this guy Elliot James, who I think the sound of the record is really a result of the collaboration of us both. He really could tie that world, make it sound like a live record, but also bring that kind of that ambience and kind of atmosphere to it. And he's worked with everyone from Nora and the Whale to Block Party before. Really different sounding records.
Do you have any experiences or other artists that have influenced you on Stick?
Who are other artists? Yeah, I was saying really Portishead and Massive Attack, Tricky. Who else was I listening to? I was listening to lots of things. I'm always listening to Beck. I was listening to John Martin a lot. He was a really great songwriter. Really nice acoustic stuff. Just listening to the way different artists express themselves and how they would write. I was listening to a lot of Frank Ocean. I went through a big Frank Ocean phase. Yeah.
The process behind an album, do you find it quite spontaneous?
Yeah, for me, I have to be in the mood. I have, I think usually if things come to me quickly, I don't know how this will be on my other records, but usually if things come to me quickly, it means I have something to say, and it would just flow really nicely. That's normally how I know when something's good. If it flows really well and there's nothing that's stopping it from being good. So yeah, I just kind of follow my gut instinct with things. And yeah, I wrote a lot of this record with members of my live band. So I've known them for years and years. So I feel really comfortable with them, and I really love the way they play. So it's just nice just being able to work with a musician who really respects what they do, so you can kind of share things together, and they know what I love. And
I really like the video for Sweeter in History. Could you explain the concept behind it and where it was shot?
Yeah, Sweeter in History was shot in Cassino, which is a town just an hour away from, an hour and a half away from Rome, between Rome and Naples. And actually my friend who shot the video, Sam, he had a holiday house there, so we went for 2 days, and just literally everywhere you turned it was just a photograph, snap, snap, snap. Every photograph you'd take there was just stunning. So I was really inspired by neorealism photography, and me and my friend Sam, he introduced me to the photography, and it really inspired a lot of my music too. That kind of is that kind of ruined glamour and kind of how things, you know, are falling apart, but they're still beautiful. And that's kind of what inspired my music, I guess, just a bit raw, but still have that element of, you know, strings and stuff. So the environment really fit the song, I think. Yeah.
How do you usually warm up before a gig?
How do I warm up? Varies. I always sing Me and Bobby McGee, the Janis Joplin version. I find that as a really good song to warm up to. Sometimes I'll do like I went on YouTube once and I did there's some weird exercises. Like there's some that you'd like want to stick your tongue out and sing. But you know, sometimes there is nowhere to warm up, so you don't want to go in the bathroom before a gig and be making all these sounds. I mean, I do it anyway. But yeah, I have like, you know, maybe a little bit of brandy, and then just kind of, I'd like to say I meditate. I don't know. It varies. I need a hug usually before I go on stage because I get very nervous.
I'm very excited for tonight's performance. What kind of material will you be showing to us?
A lot of new stuff tonight, maybe one or two oldies in there. But yeah, just a lot of the new material. We're going to be doing it acoustic, so you'll really be able to hear the songs and, you know, what they mean to me, where I come from. So it should be fun and exciting. Yeah, acoustic gigs make me nervous because you're really exposed. But I'm looking forward to playing live. Like, it's been ages since I've played, so.
And final question: do you have any upcoming tours or gigs for the future?
I got a gig in London coming up at the Voodoo Rooms in Mayfair, which should be fun. And then hopefully after the album's released in October, you know, there'll be some tour dates to follow, I'm hoping, so it should be cool. And in Bournemouth, I think I'm playing soon as well, on the 31st of September. I wonder if I remember these dates properly. I'm sure they're on my Facebook. Yeah.
Thank you for chatting with us, Gabriella. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.